Women are very powerful, and the concept of girl power has only grown stronger and stronger over the years. A few powerful women that come to mind are Cardi B, future president of the United States, Amelia Earhart, the first woman to ever get lost at sea. Or what about Cleopatra, who was one of the most powerful slave owners of all time? You go, queen. Another great example is all the ladies watching right now. Hey, ladies. But above all else, the most powerful woman in all of history is probably on the planet right now, likely a 15-year-old girl from Brazil running a BTS stan account, and with her brain and her fingers will type out an effort thread so powerful it would wipe out the entire World Wide Web in an instant. We are past the age of women being second-class citizens, and that's great. If there's one thing I love more than anything, it's feminism and women's rights. And with that, women have begun to play a much more influential role in society. Recently, in the modern social media climate, we've seen a massive wave of feminization. Women control the marketplace. If women like something, it's gonna be popular. This is mainly because there's nothing women love more than consuming products and media. And the subject of today's video is stan culture. I'm sure we all know what a stan is, but to those who are unaware, it's essentially the worst consequence of the Industrial Revolution. Stans are essentially just super fans of a certain celebrity. Stan culture is very high risk, high reward. I mean, you have dedicated fans who will endlessly consume whatever slop you put out, but the downside is that they're the worst people to ever exist and will happily cannibalize you if they feel like it. Stan culture is probably something that will be in psychology textbooks in 100 years. It's truly fascinating how passionate people can be about people who do absolutely nothing of interest. A great example of this is Gypsy Rose Blanchard. To give a summary of who Gypsy is, she is a woman who, as a young child, was tricked into believing that she was chronically ill by her mother. There's kind of a mountain of different illnesses she supposedly had. She needed a wheelchair, she shaved her head to make it seem like her hair was falling out, but all of it was untrue. And this is something Gypsy would come to realize as she got older. Obviously, Gypsy was very young and she believed her mother and lived this way for a while. There's a lot of details here that I don't feel like explaining. There's probably some good videos that go more in depth. But long story short, she, with the help of her boyfriend, would actually murder her own mother. She didn't do it directly. It was actually her boyfriend, Nicholas, that killed her, but she was charged with second-degree murder, which is based, you know, her mom was a terrible person, and I think killing people solves most problems, but unfortunately, killing people is also against the law, and Gypsy was sent to the slammer. She ended up spending around 8 years in prison, and now she's on parole. But this has been a very anticipated day for a lot of people. There was a show that came out in 2019 called The Act, which was about Gypsy's life, and this caused what I can imagine is even more hype over the day that she would finally be released. And it happened. You know, she's out, she's free, and everything is going wrong. I brought up stan culture and the influence of women because recently we've seen a lot of young women who enjoy engaging in stan culture kind of deify Gypsy, which to their credit makes a lot of sense. It's a very feminist concept to be a survivor of abuse and to kill your abuser, and now you're liberated and you're free. Like, I totally get it. It makes a lot of sense, and she definitely is an icon with that framing. But very early on into her release, I was already very uncomfortable with the way that she was being deified. In fact, I kind of informally banned discussion of her in my Discord server because I felt as though that it's wrong to engage with her and her plight for fame. Because Gypsy is trying to cash in on the clout, which, to be fair, makes sense. You know, she's making TikToks and going on podcasts, etc. Now, I know I joked about supporting her crime earlier in the video, but I'm not really taking on a position on whether it was right or wrong. I know that's a big part of the discourse, obviously, but it's not anything I'm interested in discussing because it's more of like a moral discussion and there's no right answer. It's complicated. And ultimately, she was released. She went through the legal system, and I have no arguments to that. Allow her to be free is what I say. But my problem is, like, she isn't mentally equipped to handle fame, especially at this level, and especially with the climate that the internet is in, and that's for a few reasons. Like, it's bad enough to become famous as a regular person with a normal upbringing. Like, it drives people fucking insane, especially people with, like, very minimal life experience, like Charli D'Amelio, because she became one of the most famous people on the internet, and it mentally destroyed her. And what happened to Gypsy is pretty much worse because she's been thrown into, like, stan culture and icon status despite having no real lived experience at all. Like, she doesn't understand how the world works. Because think about it, she spent the first 20 years of her life being manipulated and abused, and then she spent 8 years in it. She doesn't really have a concept of reality in the same way that almost every other American does, and that's scary. Like, I feel like she doesn't know what she's getting herself into. I know she wants the fame, she wants the attention and the brand deals and whatever else, but I'm here saying, hey, this isn't gonna end well, and people who are mentally stable need to acknowledge and not exacerbate that. But if there's one group of people that is not mentally stable, it is anyone who calls themselves a stan. The problem with stan culture, as I mentioned earlier, is there's a lot of hollow praise that comes from nowhere and isn't very justifiable. And since there's no foundation for that admiration and praise, it can crumble very quickly, and those same stans will eat you alive and ruin your life. Like recently, there's this band called Sleep Token, who is an anonymous band that wears masks, and it's very important to them that they keep their identity hidden. Someone recently doxed the bass player and posted their birth certificate. Like, that's the shit I'm talking about. There is praise and admiration for one of the biggest bands on the planet right now, but that necessary foundation of respect and boundaries is just non-existent. When you stan someone, they are not human to you. They're idols, they're objects. And the problem with Gypsy Rose is she's being consumed by a fan base that really only likes the idea of her, on a version of the internet she has no experience with, by the way. She does not understand the dire consequences that come with having stans in 2024, okay? And of course, this would fail, like I always knew it would. She's already been canceled, and people are rescinding their stan status. And it's like, I knew this would happen. How was I like one of the only people that could figure this out? So I want to go over, you know, some of the things that people are saying and give my commentary on them. There's this one TikTok in particular that I want to focus on because it really encapsulates the brain-rotted ideology of stans and why it's so toxic.
I changed my opinion on the Gypsy Rose situation in less than 24 hours. Let's talk about it.
Okay, to start off, I just want to say, this isn't impressive. This makes you look like a lobotomite. The fact that your opinion can do a complete 180 in the span of 24 hours isn't because you learn new information, it's because you're a husk. Your brain is made out of fucking Elmer's glue.
I used to stan her and be like, yes, queen, like every single one of you do. However, if you actually do some research and watch her interviews, she's not a good person. She is a master manipulator.
She's not a good person? No shit. Of course she's not a good person. She spent the first 23 fucking years of her life being mentally abused and manipulated. She was charged with second-degree murder and then spent the rest of her life in prison. Is there a narrative that someone in that position with that life shouldn't be a piece of shit at the end of it? Because that is devoid of any rational thought. I'm confused for two reasons here. Number one, why the fuck would you assume that she would be a good person? And number two, why are you applying the same standards that we hold for regular functioning people in society to her? It's like expecting Hassan Piker to not be a piece of shit. And it seems extremely slimy and unnuanced to be like, oh, she's a bad person, case closed, let's shit on her for it. Everyone who would be in her position would not be a good person, I guarantee you. She has absolutely no concept of reality or even like what normal human behavior is. And why the fuck would she? And more specifically, why would we hold her accountable for that? Like you stan her for essentially killing her mother, but then you're like, oh, she's kind of out of touch with reality and manipulative. And it's like, yeah, obviously. Like, apparently she posted a picture of her 15-year-old cousin or nephew or something and was like, hey ladies, he's single. Like, yes, she is a fucking bad person. She is not good at being a person, but I don't think that's entirely her fault. And I'm not saying that excuses it because it doesn't, but maybe instead of being mad at her for being a shitty person, be mad at yourself for enabling her platform in the first place and being the entire reason the problem is a problem.
If you watch her videos, anytime they ask about her ex-boyfriend, who her mom for her just threw his whole entire life away, has life in prison, she's like, can't worry about that. Her PR team is working hard as fuck. She shuts down the conversation about Nick, redirects the question back to herself, and is like, I can't think about that for my healing and my this and my that, you know?
Okay, so if you don't know who Nick is, he is the guy who actually did the act of killing her mom. It's Gypsy's ex-boyfriend. This guy is known for being extremely mentally ill, and he played a huge role in the process. So it already makes sense why she wouldn't want to talk about him, but regardless, what do you want her to say? Do you want her to gush about how great he is, or do you want her to shit on him completely? I feel like both of those are arguably worse. Like, I don't know what you feel like she needs to do. And this kind of goes into the main problem of just uncritically standing her. Because once you get into the weeds and the nuance of this and actually start thinking about it, it's really hard to stake out a clear and ethical position for Gypsy. So why would you even do it in the first place without exploring that idea?
I don't associate myself as a murderer. I had a part to play in it. I asked Nick for help, but he's the one that did the actual kill, not me. I can't kill anyone. That's why he's in trouble to begin with, because he's the one that did it. When they say I'm a murderer, I don't identify as that.
I mean, did you hear that? She is trying to downplay her role as a murderer. And her logic and reasoning is, well, I couldn't physically do it, so someone did it for me. Like, that doesn't make her sound better. And if she was even remotely in touch with reality, she would understand that. It's not that she's manipulative, she's literally delusional and has no concept of what it means to be a good person. And people like this person built her up, supported a platform that she isn't mentally or emotionally capable of using with responsibility, and then Gypsy's the bad person for misusing the platform. Like, she played a role in killing somebody. There were other methods to dealing with the situation without doing that, and she still did. So jumping into this, supporting her, and then expecting her to be unproblematic is the fucking stupidest thing you could do. You could probably make a better argument for the benefits of playing in traffic before rationalizing that. Especially when you consider what I said a few times already, she has no concept of reality. She's existed in extremely unique and uncommon conditions her entire life. I want to make it clear, if I haven't made it clear already, I'm not defending her necessarily. I'm more criticizing people like this, who should be mentally sound enough to know off the bat that, maybe it isn't a good idea to deify this person.
I feel like there were other routes you could have taken. Like, you didn't want to speak out at your doctor's appointment or anything like that when you found out you could walk and you weren't allergic to sugar and all of these things?
Yeah, that's a good point. A point that you and everyone should have considered before ever glamorizing her. Like, we are talking about someone who went to jail for aiding in the murder of their mother. Why the fuck was base level critical thought off of the table for you? And now you're explaining why it was bad, not realizing that you sound like a fucking Neanderthal.
And now the media is glorifying her.
No. Don't fucking shy away from responsibility. Something that would have been so much more valuable would be like self-critical analysis of how fucking stupid you have to be to idolize someone with barely any understanding of the context. Especially when you consider that the context surrounds what is the murder of her mother, which, by the way, is the entire reason why she's famous and why you're idolizing her. Why are you blaming the media? This is your fault too, and anyone who engages in the mindless glorification of Gypsy is just as responsible and negligent.
The only reason that she is getting attention is because of her PR team, and a shitload of people are making a shitload of money. My fiance explained this to me and literally like switch flipped. Oh my god, that makes so much sense.
Okay, thank you for ending the TikTok by making it clear that you are a fully grown child and need basic concepts explained to you by an adult. This is what I'm talking about here. We're talking about terminally online people who have no concept of nuanced thought. Put your fucking binky back in your mouth and take a nap, okay? We need you well rested to learn what shapes are later. Let me just summarize my entire feelings on the Gypsy Rose thing. Shut the fuck up. Do not give her attention one way or the other. Don't criticize her because it's pointless and almost kind of cruel, like you seem like a fucking bully. But also don't idolize her either. She has done bad things and we shouldn't glamorize them. That's obvious. But more specifically, enabling her to have a platform in which she is and always will be completely mentally incapable of handling is just not good or ethical in any sense. The reality of the situation is she's out of prison, she's free, and she, as well as her management, can push her as much as they want. We have no control over that, but the constant defense and attack of her is not only useless for everyone else, but is exactly what makes her platform so lucrative in the first place. There is no good reason to idolize this person because they've done terrible things, but there's also no good reason to like critically slam down about how bad of a person she is just because you initially conflated being a victim with being a good person and then realized those aren't mutually exclusive concepts. Like, don't take it out on her for not thinking it through. I don't know, this has been bothering me for a while and I wanted to talk about it, so definitely let me know what you think in the comment section. If you enjoyed this video, check out my Patreon, you know? If all 32,000 of my combined YouTube subscribers gave me $1, I'd have enough money to... So consider subscribing and smash the like button for epic sex. I'll catch you in the next one, guys.